Okay, so this next lesson in Cinema 4D is basically a continuation of what we started talking about in the last lesson, which was working with generators. Up here we have create, and in here we have generators, and we've talked about extrude and lathe. We're going to talk about loft and sweep today, and some more things about working with splines inside of Cinema 4D. So let's take a look. Let's bring this up. So we're going to go here, and we're going to do the same thing we did last time, which is we're going to release this. So we have these controls here, and I'm going to drag this up top and just have this layered up top. And maybe I'll go and right click and say icon size is large, and the number of rows is just rows and columns. We'll just use 1. Then we just have a listing across there. So we talked about extrude and lathe. Now we're going to talk about loft and sweep. So I'm going to start with sweep here for the start of this. So we're going to look at sweep as a control that we have. So we're going to go to sweep here. And if you look closely here, you'll notice that up top here, we're going to add sweep in here. You'll notice that up top here, as you look closely, that extrude, for example, has a white line here, and this white line allows us to see that there's a white line. This is basically an example of what the spline is, and it extrudes off. It generates this green, generates off of this line. So that's basically what an extrude does. If you look at the lathe has this line that goes around like this and comes around here, and then it lays around this. So it's kind of giving you an icon description of what it's basically doing. Now here in the sweep, you have two lines. You have the circle here, and you also have this shape of this spline right here. So we have both these shapes, and both these shapes are going to give us more kind of advanced controls. And so here, we're going to do this really simply. We're going to do what they say, basically. We're going to say, let's just take a circle, and we'll take a circle like this. Maybe we'll make the circle smaller. T key, make the circle smaller, and make it like this size here. And then we're going to take another spline. So let's say, for example, we go in here and we say, take a helix, for example. And so here's our helix, and we can take our helix and go into our helix controls, and we can say, let's put our helix on this path here. Let's put us on, well, let's leave it on this path here. And so our helix looks like this. We're going to make our helix a little bit smaller, make the start radius a little bit smaller, and make the end radius a little bit smaller. We'll make these 80 and 80. And so we have a helix that looks like this, basically there. And so we have we'll do an end angle. This goes from 0 to 720, but we can have this be going a lot more, and we can change the height of this. So we can make this a little bit longer and stretch this out here like so. So the idea being is we're going to have a circle and a helix. And what we're going to do is we're going to wrap the circle around the helix. So the way this is going to look is we'll call this circle, and I'm actually going to rename this, and just for example purposes, we're going to call this circle A. And now we're going to call this helix B. And I just want to make a note of this. You don't need to do this, but I'm going to make this a note of this. I want this in this order. I want A to wrap around B. So it's going to be A first and then B. This is the order that it's going to be. So circle's going to wrap around the helix. Otherwise, it would be helix wrapped around the circle. Now, lettering conventions, I'm just doing for example purposes. I can get rid of this if you want to. It just makes this easier. But just remember that circle is A and helix over here is B. And we can say, yeah, let's just make this circle around helix. So this, the one that's first up here, is going to be A. So up here, we have circle, we have helix. The one that's first is going to be A. The one that's going to be second is B. So we're going to shift click and grab both of these. And now we're going to put these both into the sweep. You need to put two splines into a sweep to make the sweep work. And we put the spline in the sweep, and we get, boom, this. So now what we've done here is we've wrapped the circle around this helix. And by doing so, we've sort of made this shape. Now we still have controls. We still have controls to take the circle and make the circle smaller. We can make the circle 20, for example. And now we have a smaller wrap around like there. We could take the helix and change the helix end angle and make this longer, change the height and make this wider, whatever you want to do, and we've made some kind of a coil there like so. So that is how a sweep works. It's always the first one around the second one, and that's the way you got to think of it, A around B. It's always A around B, and that's how you do it. There are some controls within the sweep, so the sweep has some controls. It has some controls to talk about some of the subdivisions, so we can talk about some of the subdivisions, N, B, and see how this is subdivided here, and talk about the different types of subdivisions we can have here. You have an N scale, so you can actually make the scale of this a little bit bigger. It can grow bigger on one end. And then you have an end rotation, which is basically how the polygons around this kind of rotate, how they're set up like there. So that might be important to you. you have a start growth and an end growth. So you can actually animate these. When we get an animation, you can animate these to kind of have these right on, for example, etc. Now, there's some other controls about parallel movement and using rail direction, keeping segments, and all these other things. We can get to these later, but these are kind of straightforward. Let's talk about caps for a second, though. These will have caps on them at the end here, so we can have an end cap or start cap and turn these off and have these be hollow. And then if we do have caps, we can bevel these caps. We've looked at bevel before. We can have bevel shapes. We can round these out, add more segments to my bevel, maybe change it from a round to a step bevel, something like that. So there's a bunch of controls there. We can have this be a solid, which doesn't really matter, but we can have some controls to kind of change how this looks and how this is designed like so. So that is my sweep right there, and those are some of my adjustments for my sweep that I can do. So we can do lots of things with sweep. You'll find that there's lots of things, cables, piping, all kinds of things you can do with sweep. Now, you could sweep other different shapes and other different kind of bars or whatever it may be. If you wanted to say, instead of a circle here, you say get rid of the circle, we're going to grab a square, or maybe an end side. Yeah, maybe we'll grab an end side, and we'll grab an end side that's a triangle. And we'll just keep this really small. We'll just get a T key and make this really small. This is going to wrap a triangle around this shape. So if we put a triangle right in here, right first, you got to make sure it just kind of navigates into this hierarchy first. It's going to look like that. It's going to have this triangular shape. It's still going to be wrapped around the coil, so it's going to be rounded this way, but it's going to be more triangular now, based on wrapping a triangle around this. So you can have that kind of weird shape. Command R, we can see how that looks. Oh, that's kind of crazy and funky. Anyway, so you can have some of those shapes like there, etc. One thing that's always fun to do is if we went to, we did before, let me just frame default here. And we went here, frame default, and we said, let's take our text, for example, we'll take a text spline, and we'll say, plumber or something. Plumber. You could just have this say plumber here, and we could just take this E key, take this text spline, move this over, and have this like so, and have this here, and then say, let's take, something else. Let's take a cogwheel, or maybe just take a circle. Circle would make more sense. Take the circle, make it really small, make it like 10, and then we'll say, let's wrap, maybe even smaller, maybe like 5, because these are really small there. We're going to wrap the circle around the text spline. And so here, shift-click both these, put them into the sweep. Again, child of the sweep. We're going to put them in there like so. When we have this kind of, there. It's a little bit questionable at the end there because it kind of wraps around and hits different points here. So there's a couple points that can be cleaned up a little bit by cleaning up the spline. The text spline is usually working with the font that it has by default. So maybe if it shows a better font, you could find something there. Oh, that's even worse. Whew, that's even worse. Again, find yourself a good font. Open Sans, maybe? Oh, that's pretty good. That's interesting. Does some interesting things with the edging here as it moves around. So it depends on how the font is drawn. Sometimes you want to even almost draw the font out yourself to make some smooth lines. Palatino? Interesting. Crazy. Anyway, some cool things you can do with the spline. And the spline's kind of fun. It's a good time. Nothing big deal about it, but it's just kind of, or the sweep is kind of fun. Nothing big deal about it, but some cool things you can do there like so. And then, you can bring in, and just in case we didn't mention this before, you can bring in your own different types of splines. So if you have your outside splines, if you have vector art, and by vector art I mean stuff that was made in Illustrator or stuff that was made in EPS, for example, we can look. I have in here, I'm going to go to File, Open Project, and in Open Project on my desktop here, I have a Prince symbol, the artist formerly known as Prince. I have this Prince symbol. It's going to bring this up. This is vector art. So on my desktop, I have vector art of the outline of the Prince symbol made in vector art. So it's made in Adobe Illustrator, which allows me to get, vector paths. And so it asked me, do I want to create this, and how do I want to create this, etc. And it's to scale 1 centimeter. Notice it says file detected as Illustrator 8 or prior. So this was made a long time ago in an earlier version of Illustrator, but it will still work. It'll still bring this in perfectly fine. And when I do that, I say OK. And boom, it brings in there. And look, the Prince symbol. So now I could go back and extrude this. I could say extrude. And if you want another shortcut, the shortcut we did before for making something a deformer is to hold on the Shift key. If you click on something and hit the Shift key, you can add a deformer automatically naturally to it. And we could naturally deform this Prince symbol. And that would be a thing we could do. But if you want to make something apparent, And so you want to make something apparent. I always think of the Alt key as adult. So if we want to go here and click on this and then Alt extrude this, it'll automatically put this right in there and works like a charm and extrudes this. Now this was really small and it extruded this. Let's see, the extrude distance is 100 centimeters. Let's make this smaller, 20 centimeters. Well, that's even still too big. Let's go to like 5 centimeters. There we go. Now we have the print symbol extruded like there, and now it's put out like there. So if you ever want to make something apparent automatically, you can click on it and then just hit the Alt key or hold on the Alt key when you click on it, and it will automatically make it apparent. Also, you can bring in some vector art as need be. As we continue on, just keeping track of things, I do want to mention as an idea, view frame default, that if you're bringing in newer vector art, Cinema 4D has this newer way of bringing in different kinds of vector art. So if you're bringing in something newer, I have this Illustrator file of the map of New Jersey, the outline of the state of New Jersey, the best state in the Union. And so when you bring this in, it doesn't say, hey, this was made in Illustrator 8 or prior. And so it brings this thing that says create a vector object. Creates a vector object in here. And that is a circumstance that you'll see sometimes. We're bringing this thing called a vector object right here. And this is what's a vector object? I'm not really a big fan of the vector objects. They're great, and they do great, wonderful things. But if I want to just start simple and start basic and start kind of, original, not creating a vector object, just taking the Illustrator files as they were, you can say open, don't create a vector object, and then bring it in, and it will just bring it in. Yeah, sure, open it, yeah, cool. And this will just create a regular spline inside of here with the regular spline ingredients. So we'll have the regular spline there and the regular spline there. It kind of maps this out because this one was made in Illustrator and had an outline and had some other things going on here, so it's a little bit complicated. So there may be some deleting going on. So there may be some, yeah, we don't need that. We don't need the background. We don't need this inside of here. We don't need the copyright logo. Just other things we don't need. We just want the spline here like so. But if you see that happen sometimes where you bring this in and you say, hey, let's just bring in this here, and you open this up, and you say, let's bring in this New Jersey logo, and you bring this in, and it says, hey, it automatically defaults to that, and you see this weird green thing show up in here, and you're like, what is all this stuff? This is really cool. It can do some really cool things. It can auto extrude for you and has a lot of controls there. It's really nice. It's really some nice things you can do with some of the vector art made in Illustrator, but if it's too complicated for you, we can start really simple and not make a vector object, just to show you that can be done there as an idea. I just want to show you, just in case you run into it, some circumstances that will exist inside of there. So that is the sweep. The weird thing about the sweep, and I'll be fair, just to be completely honest, oops, let's say no, don't want to save that, we don't want to save that. Let's go back to the original sweep here. The original sweep here, the trick will be, is that if you made, for example, you said made a circle, and you had a circle, whoops, sorry, make a circle and have the circle be small, and then said, let's make a spline. Let's take a flower, for example. This would be cute. Take a flower there, and you said, let's wrap the circle around the flower here. If you're clicked on both of them, holding down the Alt key and going to sweep, would put a sweep around each of them. That's not obviously what you want to do. So in that case, it doesn't really work for you. I mean, yes, could you go back here and take the circle and move it back to there? Yeah, now you have that circle there, and you can delete that, and because you don't need that. But yeah, that's going to be an issue because it won't do. It's not that smart. It's not that smart to know that you want to have both these in here in a sweep. I wish it was, but it's not. It doesn't think in that capacity. One other thing I want to cover is if you have this circle and you have this flower. Here, we'll take a look at the circle and the flower. And just go back to here. If you have the circle and the flower, if the circle is on the XY plane, and it sometimes matters which plane it's on. If the circle's on the XY plane here, and you have this like so, inside of here, when you put this in there, it wraps it around perfectly fine, and it wraps this around the circle around the flower. Sometimes you might have the plane wrong, and sometimes the circle will be on the, say, the XZ plane, which means it'd be facing like this. And now, I'm not exactly sure how this is going to do. It's going to wrap it around kind of flat. And so when we put the circle inside the flower, boom, you get this, which is totally not what we wanted. This is 2D. And again, if the circle was on the, say, ZY plane, this way, facing this way, what will it do? I don't know, Chad, what will it do? It'll make a weird outline like that. That's terrifying. Anyway, so it matters which plane you're on, how it wraps around. What it decides is the angle of wrapping. Sounds like a Cool thing. The angle of wrapping. I don't know. So that's some things you'll encounter with the spline and how the spline works. All right, so that's the sweep. I mean, there's some other things we can do with the sweep, but for now, I think that sets you up on a good track of the sweep. We're going to keep moving, and we're going to go to my last one, my favorite one, honestly, my favorite one. And it's my favorite one because it's the one that I didn't like at first, and because I didn't like it because it was explained to me poorly. And so I want to talk about the loft. The loft here. Up here's the loft, and you'll see, again, if you look at the icons here, you'll see that instead of 1 point, it has 1, 2, 3 points. And so 3 points is usually the minimum. You can get away with 2, but 2 doesn't really give you the appreciation of it there like so. So we're going to look at here, and I'll explain to you, I'll show you exactly how the loft was explained to me and how it was pointless to me. It made no sense to me whatsoever. So let's say, for example, you have a spline that's a rectangle. And so you have a rectangle spline. We're going to take this rectangle spline. We're going to go here, we'll make it a little bit smaller, hit the T key, make it a little bit smaller, and we're going to take this rectangle spline and put it on the ZY plane, which is going to put it flat on the ground. Or sorry, the XZ plane. XZ plane is going to put it flat on the ground, and we're going to have it here on the XZ plane like so. Okay, then we're going to take a circle. And we'll take a circle, and we'll put the circle, we'll make the circle a little bit smaller, T key, make it smaller. And we'll also put this on the XZ plane, and so we'll have it there. And then we're going to take the E key and move the circle up. Like so. And then lastly, we'll take maybe another one. We'll take the star here. And we'll put the star, we'll make this a little bit smaller. T key, make it a little bit smaller. And then we'll take the star and we'll put this on the XZ plane as well. And then we'll take this and push this up even further. So now we have these 3 different objects. We have the square, the circle, and the star. And maybe even the star. We'll go to star and you know, I don't know, twist the star a little bit. There we go. Twist the star a little bit just for fun there. We can put some other controls there on the star, etc. And we have this like there. Imagine if we took these 3 things and we kind of just took this as like a skeleton, like a ribbing, and we made a paper mache kind of wrap around this. If you ever did paper mache and made paper mache figures before, you kind of build kind of a framework, a wire frame, and you kind of build around it by just draping paper, you know, glued paper around this, and you make this kind of paper mache, you know, wet paper around this, and you put it around there, you could make that. And so this will connect this to this to this, and you could take this and take all 3 of these and put these onto the loft. So all 3 of these together, put these loft, and you would make, boom, this. And you're like, oh my God, that's amazing. What have I made? Why would I ever want to make that? I mean, it looks kind of freaky. If you're going to make kind of abstract art, you could kind of control this and make kind of weird things here, but why would I ever want to make that? And that's how loft was explained to me. And I was like, well, I'm going to never, ever, ever use loft. Forget loft. It's pointless. What would I use loft for? Here's the secret. I use loft all the time, and I use loft for all kinds of reasons. Anything that is basically cylindrical or cylindrical in nature, loft becomes wonderful. And so let's take a look. Let's take a better look at how to use loft. So we're going to go here and go to frame default, and I'm going to go and grab a circle. And I'm going to put this on the XZ plane so it's flat on the ground here. We'll make it a little bit smaller. We'll make it like there, and we'll make, boom, that size. And now I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to take this and I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to hold down, I'm going to hit the E key and move up. But if you know, if I hold down the Command key or the Control key on a PC, by holding the Command key, it brings up my duplication control. And so now when I drag up, it's going to drag a duplicate up. So it's going to drag but pull up and drag a good duplicate there. I'm going to hold in the 1 key and bring this down a little bit so I can see this. So now I have 2 circles, circle and circle.1. I'm going to take circle.1, hit the T key, and make this a little bit bigger. Maybe I'll hold down Shift and make this exactly 110 the size. 115, 120. Holding down Shift will go in solid 5-degree increments. All right, so I'm going to do this again. Now I'm going to go here, and here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this, and I'm going to hit the E key, and I'm going to go down a little bit. I'm going to Command down and make another 1. Maybe 5 centimeters down, and I'll just hit the T key, I'll hold down Shift, and I'll make this 5 centimeters bigger. Cool. And now I'm going to go here, and I'm going to go down one more time. I'm going to go E key, drag down, hold down Shift, and go just a little bit further down. Oops, sorry, hold on Shift. Well, let me undo what I just did. We're going to hold down Command, drag down, and Shift. Boom, 5 centimeters down. Cool. Command and Shift, because I got to duplicate and drag it down. Then I'm going to hit the T key. I'm going to go Shift, and drag this in back to what it was before. So now I have these 3 layers. So now I have, whoops, sorry. Now I have here, I have these 3 layers like so. It looks like this one's too big. So let's take this one and make this one back to 95%. We're going to go here and you say, hold down shift and go here, boom, and go bring this to 95. So this is 95, whoops, sorry. 95, 100, 95. So it's going to go from this one. So it's going to go from this one up to the top and then roll backwards to here and then roll backwards to there. I'm going to put all 4 of these into a loft. And here, putting all 4 of these into a loft, guess what I made? I made a coffee cup. Boom. So I have a little coffee cup there. And now I have controls. Look, there's a little coffee cup with a little ridge. Now the ridge is kind of a little chunky. Let's be honest, the ridge is kind of chunky. So let's clean this up a little bit. Let's look at the loft. Let's look at the subdivisions here. So the best subdivisions on the here NB, just so we can see, are only 4 subdivisions here. But we want to go here and say, let's increase the subdivisions this way. And let's increase the subdivisions this way. Let's just go up to 64, just something huge. And now we have a coffee cup there. Now the coffee cup obviously isn't a coffee cup because why? It has a cap here. So let's go to the start cap and get rid of that. Now we have a coffee cup. Amazing. You know, kind of like a paper cup, you know, there. And we can make this cup longer. So we can take this and go here and say, just by moving this circle, E key, move this down, we can make this cup a little bit longer. You know, now we have a grande versus a venti versus a, you know, whatever the sizes are. I don't know. I don't drink enough coffee. And so here we have this like a coffee cup inside of here. So we can make a simple, easy coffee cup. That's wonderful. That's amazing. So that's, you know, lots of fun. Let's go in here and let's say, for example, we're going to take this circle here and I'm going to duplicate another circle at the bottom here. So we have this circle at the bottom. We're going to turn the loft off. We have the circle at the bottom. What I want to do is, I don't know what that's called. Somebody knows what that's called. What is the little ridge? You know, like when you have a coffee cup, you have a little ridge at the bottom that like makes the coffee cup more stable. It's like the coffee cup ends a little bit in. I'll show you. So we're going to go here to this circle. We're going to duplicate the circle. So I'm going to hold down a command and we're going to drag another circle right there, which is going to make another circle. So there's 2 circles in the same exact place. But I'm going to take this circle, I'm going to hit the T key, and I'm going to bring this smaller in a little bit. There, now you can see I have a tiny little bit of a ridge, But I'm going to take this circle, I'm going to hit the E key, and I'm going to drag this up a little bit, and so now I have a little, you know that little ridge that comes in the bottom there that says, hey, this is like there. So now we have a little coffee cup ridge. So now I have a little coffee cup in there. Cool. We have something. We have something. And now we have, you know, we can go in here in materials and we can say, let's grab like a wood material. Or yeah, let's grab a wood material. And let's see, let's find an old, something. I always do like spruce planks. Maybe we'll go to spruce planks. Yeah, that'll be fun. And we'll put this on the loft. And then boom, this will download inside of here. And then we'll have a wooden coffee cup. Man, that looks kind of weird. It's a weird looking cup. Maybe we want to go a different way. Maybe that's different. We can go to the materials here and go to change the mapping to cylindrical, for example. Maybe something like that. Maybe. Same thing. Let's do cubic. That's interesting. We could rotate it. We could offset it and rotate it. But some ideas we could play in there. We have a coffee cup there like so. Anyway, I don't know. That's kind of silly. You know, we won't want to do that. Let's just stick with our coffee cup as it is. Cool. So we have our coffee cup. So we're going to take this. We're going to relabel this and call this coffee cup. Coffee cup. Coffee cup. Coffee cup. Cool. And I'll take this. I'll put this here. And then we just have a coffee cup. We're going to hide our coffee cup here. So again, up in the corner controls here, I'm just going to say hit it once to get rid of it, or to make it visible, to leave it on. Hit it again to turn it off. By the way, we want to do this to both of these. So the trick would be is that we can hold down the Alt key, the Option key, and we can do it to both. Okay, now it's invisible. So now there's no coffee cup. We have invisible coffee cup. Sorry. Goodbye, coffee cup. Let's do it here like so. All right, so we're going to make a lid for a coffee cup. So I want my lid, just really quick, Option key. I want my lid to kind of go right around this edge here. So the lid is going to fall right on this edge here. Maybe a little bit bigger, but we're going to have this be here like there. So I'm going to look for this edge. This would be not this one, not this one. It would be this, not this one. It would be this one because this is the widest one. So just as a detail, this is the widest ridge around here. So we're going to take this, and I'm going to duplicate this. I'm going to go Command, drag, and drag a copy of this outside of here. We'll close the coffee cup, Option key, click until it's red, and then we just have this lid here. Okay, so we have this lid here. We'll close the coffee cup, and now we have the lid here. I'm going to do this. So let's play a game. I'm going to say, okay, we're gonna try this. I don't know if I'm going to be good. We're gonna make kind of a good old kind of a plastic lid for a cup here. So your typical cafeteria cup there, and we're gonna say let's command drag and make another one. Now we're going to have to put these circles right next to each other. So we're going to put these circles right in a row. The order matters. We're going to take this one, we're going to raise it up a little bit, and we're going to bring this in just a little bit, just like this here. Okay. Now we're going to go command and drag the scale to scale it smaller. Now we have like that going on. And now we're going to go to there. And then we're going to go to E key and command drag and pull this in a little bit. So we have like a little bit there. And then we're going to command drag T key, make another circle. Like there. And then we're going to go to E key, command drag, pull this up, back to here. And then we're going to go T key, command drag, super small. Like there. Let's see how that works. I don't know if that's going to work. I don't know if that's going to do what I wanted to do. We have 6 different circles here. We're going to put those into a loft. Loft, again, I can't put them each into a loft with the Alt key. I have to grab them all and put them into one loft. That way they'll be in a loft. And now I have a weird... Oh, that's weird. That's not what I wanted. I mean, it's sort of there. It's kind of sort of there, but let's clean this up a little bit. Let's look at the loft. First off, let's go into the loft object controls and let's change this to like 48 or something, just so we have more roundedness there. So we sort of have a cup. I'm going to go to NA just so I can see the cup. So we sort of have the cup action going on. Let's see if we can clean this up a little bit, and let's see if we can make this a little bit better. So I feel like the bottom circle should come in a little bit. So let's bring this a little bit flatter. Yeah, just so it has a little bit more shape like there. So we're sort of getting this coffee cup shape. We could probably take this and give ourselves a little bit more ridge to make a little bit, deeper coffee cup there like so, and we have some of those controls there. I feel like one of these, so it's 1, 2, 3, 4, this, I think it's this one. I don't know, let's see. Let's try. That's the bottom. I want to bring the top one up. This piece in a little bit, just so it's a little bit more there. Yeah, a little bit like that. See that? We could even take this one and we could say, let's take this one and bring this up a little bit. We'll E key, bring this up a little bit. Boom. It's kind of dipping down the bottom, and then we can hit the T key and just kind of, the R key and rotate a little bit, maybe a little bit of like a, kind of an angled coffee cup there, for some kind of stylistic thing. Or we could take the middle part of this. Let's take the 6 here. Let's bring that up to here. And we could have that little kind of rotation where it kind of rotates in a little bit like there. Now, it's really, really rounded. It's the whole shape of this is really, really rounded. If you wanted a really, really rounded cup, all the edges kind of loop over and round over, that would be a way to go. But there's also control here in the loft that says linear interpolation is off here. And linear interpolation says, boom, turn that off. And we have more of a square kind of, less rounded cup here. Or less rounded lid here. There's more kind of this kind of shape like so. So we can do linear interpolation, or we can do a very rounded shape. I don't know. You could decide which you want, which works better. Obviously, this last circle is offset a little bit, so that 16-degree offset is there. It'd make it look weird, but if you wanted kind of a more square cup, again, in the loft controls and the object controls, linear interpolation could make a different kind of cup lid. But we like this cup. We like this there. We're going to go to this loft here and go to the caps in the start cap, and we're going to have a little hole there in the center. So now we have a little cap that has a center hole there. We're going to move that back to where it was. So now we have here, there's a little hole. We can make a hole. Obviously, we want to get rid of the end cap as well because we don't want this to have there. But if this was on top of the cup, we can turn the cup back on and say, hey, let's bring the cup back. Now, obviously, I changed some of the things about the lid, so let's make it a little bit smaller. Let's hit the T key and say T and make this much bigger. And hit the E key and say move this on top. And then we have the cup kind of just there, like so. And then we can still go back to this circle here on top, and we could say, like, just cut this in a little bit so it kind of comes in a little bit like there. And then take this circle maybe and pull this out a little bit more so it's, more like a fitted cup on the edge there. So we could play with the circles and play with them like so and have some of that control inside of there. So that's some things we can do. Those are some things we can do with Loft. I use Loft all the time to make all kinds of things. So if, for example, we'll just play again. I'll hit Command N, make a new window or new project here. And into the project, we're gonna go here, and we're gonna try to make like a cup, like a bottle, like a good old like water bottle here. And I'm gonna try some tricks here. We're gonna go into let's go into the flower, for example. Maybe the flower, maybe the star. We'll start with the star. We'll do the flower here. Take the flower here. We'll make the flower. I'll put this on the XZ. I really like it on the XZ plane. We're going to go here, and we're going to say, let's go and T key, make this a little bit smaller. Put this right here. And now we're going to take a circle. We're going to grab a circle and grab a circle. Again, the XZ plane, we're going to put it right above this like so, and we're going to move it up a little bit here. I'll make this flower a little bit smaller. T key, make it a little bit smaller there like so. All right, I'm going to take the circle. I'm going to go E key, Command drag up. Oops, sorry. Command drag up. Make a duplicate. You got to make sure you let go of the mouse before you let go of Command. Otherwise, it will just undo the duplicate. And so here, we're going to do a circle. And then we're going to go here and do Command drag up a little bit more. And I'm going to T key and go back to, again, Shift key 95%. 95%. And then we'll go up again. So we'll go E, Command drag up. So I'm making duplicates. By using Command, I'm making duplicates. And I can go to exact measurements, but we're just going to play. We're going to eyeball it, and I'm going to go to Shift key and come back out to 105%, which would be back to regular size. So now we have, whoops, we have this kind of little edge here. I don't know if you can see that or really appreciate that. We have it there. We're going to take this, and we'll take all three of these. We'll take all three of these. We'll kind of grab all three of them, and then we're going to go E key, and we're going to drag all three of these up a little bit further, like this. And this will make 4, 5, and 6. Then we'll grab up again and grab a little bit like there and have 7, 8, 9. And then we'll go up again and have 9, 10, 11. And I'm just kind of eyeballing the size here. And then we can say, okay, go from here. Maybe we'll take this last one. This last one, we'll duplicate this again up to here, just a little bit, just so we have a little bit of a flat spot. And then we're going to go here. And we're going to go Command drag up really far. And we're going to go T key and make this really smaller. And I want to show you right now, we have all of these inside of here. Let's see what we have in terms of our loft. So we're going to take all of these and put these into a loft like so, and then boom. Okay, so we sort of have a bottle. Now, obviously, it's a little bit chunky. We could kind of clean this up a little bit in the object controls. Again, go to something like 48 and say boom, and have a little bit rounded edges there and have there. But look at the bottom of the bottle there. We have that little kind of like, cut out portion there. We could take this flower and say maybe just E key, move this in a little bit so it has a little bit of a inset there, and so you can have some of those controls there. Obviously, there's some things we could do with the different isoparm subdivisions to control this a little bit and make this a little bit smoother. But yeah, as we control the subdivisions, we can kind of play with this like so, and we can sort of make a bottle there as an idea. And we could go in here and say, let's take this circle. Now, the weird thing that happens is if you put this into a loft, once this is already in a loft, if I try to just command drag this, it's going to take the next circle and put it over here at the bottom, which is weird that it does that. And so when I command drag and pull this here, it puts this one at the bottom, which means I keep having to drag this up to the top to have this like there. If I want to have like a ridge or something, I could do this. I could command drag and pull this up. But if I start pulling up here, it's going to keep putting this at the bottom, which is not necessarily what I want to do. I can have this kind of spot here, command drag up here, and then say move this up a little bit like there. And then take this one, command drag this one over this one, and pull this one in, and move it in smaller, something like there, and etc. And have really a bottle shape like so, and really work on my bottle. But you get the idea. You kind of get the idea of what I'm doing. Again, if I put these down here, not cool, not your friend. So there's going to be some issues and limitations with that command drag once it's in there. Sometimes you want to pull this out and just keep working on it, and then keep throwing it into the loft as you need it. We're going to take the caps and turn the start cap off so it has a hollow shape, and we kind of sort of have a bottle shape there. You could work in your bottle, make your bottle better, etc., and make that kind of more unique. But you see the idea of what we're doing here. You see the kind of the creative things that we're doing. You can do this with all kinds of things. You can make all kinds of weird shapes and weird kind of piping and weird kind of things in here. I really like the loft. The loft is a lot of fun. I did once. We'll do Command N. Let's see if I can do this again. Command N will make a new one. We're going to go here and we're going to say circle. And we're going to say circle. We're going to put this on the XZ plane. We'll make this small. We'll make this like 50, 100 maybe. Yeah, we'll stick with 100. We'll make this big enough. 100 centimeters is pretty big. And now we're going to take the circle, and on top of the circle, and this is where it gets tricky. On top of the circle, we're going to say, let's put in the cogwheel. And so we're going to take the cogwheel. I'm going to take the cogwheel, or maybe not in the cogwheel. Let's take the star. Let's take the star. And we'll take the star, and I'll go here. And I'll make a star. Okay, so we'll make a star, but we'll make a star with a ton of points. We'll make it start with like 100 points here. Cool, so now we have 100 points. We want to change the outer radius, the inner radius, to only be like 190. So it's really, you know, just kind of an edge there. We're going to make this XZ. Boom. And we're going to move this T key smaller right to about there. We'll make it a little bit bigger. And we're going to go to E and move this up like here. And then we're going to take this star and we're going to duplicate the star. So I'm going to hit T key and command smaller this to make a little bit smaller shape. Or maybe actually just do this. Instead of the star, we'll put a circle on the inside of this. Sorry, leave the star. Put a circle on the inside of this. So I'm going to go here. I'm going to command drag this circle up here. And we're going to move this circle into the even plane of this. So now it's going to be circle, star, circle. It's going to be like this, kind of coming in a little bit like this. Maybe we'll make this even just a little bit bigger. Just like there. And we're going to put this into a loft. And in here, when we put this into a loft, it's going to make a mess. So let's be honest, it's going to make a big mess. It's not going to work for us at all. It looks really, really weird. So let's go to the loft. Let's go to the loft object and just do the mesh subdivisions. And now with the mesh subdivisions, if we crank this up a lot, if we get the right size, and it's the right number of sizes, how this works, we'll make this like 200 or something, we can make a peanut butter cup. Peanut butter cup. Yeah. We got to get the right number of subdivisions there, and we can make a decent peanut butter cup there. Man, that looks good. Looks delicious right there. Made myself a peanut butter cup. Yeah, I made a peanut butter cup. Yeah. Again, should this be linear? I don't know. Does it work better as a linear interpolation? Didn't seem to make much of a difference. A little bit of difference, but not much of a difference. Anyway, you can make a peanut butter cup. There you go. Now I want some candy. Anyway, some things I can make. I had to make a peanut butter cup one time. Somebody asked me how to make a peanut butter cup for Hershey Foods. Just to show you, just as an idea. So that is the loft control. The loft control allows us a lot of freedom to do a lot of things. Between these, between extrude, lathe, loft, and sweep, you have a lot of controls to make a lot of different objects, a lot of different shapes, a lot of different things if you wanted to make them. So, okay, so we have those abilities there. I want to talk about a couple other of these since we have the time, since we can talk about these. We're talking about a little bit of time here. So we'll spend some time talking about both the Boole and the Spline Mask while we're here. I figured why not? We can talk both of these. We have some free time, and we'll talk about them here. We'll squeeze these in. So the Boole is really simple. So really quickly here, if I take an object here, and I take something like an object like this, and I take this, make it wider, etc., and I take, say, a cylinder, for example. I can go to cylinder, and I can say cylinder, and I can put a cylinder in the center of here. When I go to the cylinder, I can take the cylinder and the cube, and I can do cube minus the cylinder, and this is what's called a boole. So over here, you have a boole, and instead of the boole, you can have a cube minus a cylinder. And so bring these two in here, like this. You're going to say, and the boole says A subtract B, and we put the cube and the cylinder in here. It subtracts this out, and it cuts this out like so, and you have a hole. Basically a simple hole. There we go. Simple hole. When we render this, it renders, boom, there with the hole. Obviously, the cylinder can have some more segments there. We can have some more rotation segments, maybe 32, make it more roundier, and you can have it there like so. Now, the way that this works, the way the boole works is it does A subtract B. It does this in that kind of idea. There's also A without B. There's A union B, which is kind of just both these objects together, which for now doesn't seem like it has a purpose, but it will later. A intersect B, which would do where these things two cut together. So it's basically saying cut out the cylinder in the shape of the boole. A intersect B. It's kind of a weird idea. If it was reversed, it would be the same thing, basically. It's expressed where they intersect, so it doesn't really matter. And then there's an option here called A without B. You'll notice that A subtract B and A without B are basically the same thing. The only difference here is A without B doesn't make internal walls. So A without B says, hey, this thing is hollow. And so here, let's make this a little bit different here. this cuts this out, and we'll cut this out. Q minus cylinder. Sorry, bool A without B. We'll cut this out. Yeah, it's hard to see. There we go. That's a little better. We'll cut this out and make hollow spaces here, so you can see that the walls around this are hollow. And so here, that would be the difference between A subtract B, which would make an internal kind of a walls here, versus A without B would make invisible walls, or without walls. So there's a minor difference between those controls in those different objects there. Now the weird thing is that this is going to do A without B versus A subtract B. This is going to bool this A to B object here. And so when we make this bool, we'll do A subtract B here. It's going to make this bool here, and this bool is going to be basically like this there. If you wanted to have multiple objects cut out in here, and you didn't want to have to do this 17 times. I've seen people do this where they put in a bool, and then they take the bool, and they put into another bool, and then take another bool, and they put into another bool, and it becomes this whole big mess. Don't do that. What you can do is you can take these, and you can put these into a null. And up here, you have a null control. A null is a big nothing. So the big nothing. And you can say A minus nothing. And so now it's A minus nothing. But if you put the cylinder into the null, it cuts the cylinder. And then if you said duplicate the cylinder, let's hit the cylinder, let's make this a little bit smaller. And then you said duplicate the cylinder, let's say command drag and drag another cylinder. Whoops, sorry, let's command E and drag another cylinder. Since they're both in the null, all these cylinders in the null, any shape we put into the null, it considers it part of the group, and therefore will subtract. So if you wanted multiple things to subtract out of there, this is a really easy way to subtract multiple things out of the equation as need be. Weird overlap one there, but that'd be the idea. And you could put other things in here. You could put a, another, platonic or something. And if the platonic was here inside of the null, boom, it would cut this out. Except we're going to make the platonic a little bit smaller. And now you have the platonic cut out as well. You can have those kind of arrangements of different objects cut out inside of here based on the shape of the object, etc. So there is some things you can do by putting these into a null. It's still A minus B. It's just inside of B is all of these things. So that's a little kind of workaround trick you can do with the bool. So that is the bool. The bool's kind of fun. Good times. So if you want to cut stuff out, it's a really easy way to cut stuff out. We can talk about how to make this a singular object later and make this one thing across the board really easily inside of here. If we're going to go frame default, next to bool, you also have the control for spline mask. So say, for example, you're not really good at drawing splines, and you can't really draw splines really well, and you're having trouble looking on the internet to find splines. You could say, okay, I can make a circle. We'll take the circle, make this circle a little bit smaller. T key, make it a little bit smaller. We're going to move this over here like this. We're going to go in here and we're going to say, okay, I just want to take this circle. I'm going to duplicate this circle. So I'm going to go command drag, and we'll just grab this guy and, whoops, we're still in scale. E, move this circle, and we're going to move this over here like this, and we'll make this one a little bit smaller. T key. Whoops, sorry. And we're going to move this over like E, and move this over here to about there. And then we're going to go command drag and drag another circle to there. And then I've made this shape. And so now I have this shape. You have no idea what the shape is. You're confused. You're bizarrely, it's strange, etc. And now I want to say, okay, I want to cut this out, and I want to say, let's use this as a sweep, for example. Let's take a sweep. Let's take another circle. We'll just take another random circle. Or maybe a flower. We'll take a flower. We'll make the flower really small. Really small. And I want to take this flower, and I want a flower. I'm going to take this and put this into a group. So I can also hit Alt-G. So remember, if you hit Alt-G or go to Group Objects, Alt-G, Option-G, and group these objects. And I want to put this, I want to wrap this around this here. Okay, so I'm going to here and go to Sweep. I'm going to wrap this around this and group these together. So I'm going to group these into here and group these around, and it's going to make, boom, like there, like so. No, that did not do at all what I wanted to do. And so that didn't do what I wanted to do because I can't wrap one thing around this thing the way that I want to because this is a null. And so that's a problem. Oh man, what am I doing to do? Well, the trick is that what I want to do is I want to do a spline mask. And so a spline mask will say, hey, let's, instead of grabbing this around there, let's take these and put these into a spline mask. And a spline mask is a nice way to group splines together as different splines. Now, the default here, oh look, it's Mickey Mouse. You didn't even see that, did you? No man, you didn't even see that. That's an idea. The default here is in here. This is a weird grouping. Look at that. That's crazy talk. That's because we use the flower. Let's use a flower. Let's use a flower with less petals. Let's use like a 4-petal flower. Kind of 3-petal flower. So now we have a 3-petal flower here. Looks like that shape. Again, that's kind of crazy, but you get the idea. Let's turn this sweep back on. Now it's sweeping basically this. That looks kind of crazy. Let's take the sweep and let's see if we can change the subdivisions here. And we can probably change the shape. We can probably change the shape of the splines as well. So if you ever have questions about the splines, you can go to the splines and make the points. It has adaptive points, so it's going to make the spline kind of using adaptive points here. You could change this to uniform points or something like that and change the number of points across this. And if we crank up the number of points, you'll see that we have more detail of the points of how the flower works. But we can also look at the different circles and say, hey, circles, and say circles and change the number of points to there and have more points, etc. You know, and have this be more curved, etc. and how this shapes out like so. Let's hit NA just so it's a little bit less messy. You see some cutaway there, overlap, etc. But this kind of control of making this spline mask, of putting these in here, will work for these splines like so. So if we wanted to, instead of doing a sweep, just say we want to do something simple. We want to do, let's do a sweep with a circle, because circle is going to be easier to understand maybe. We'll take a circle, we'll make this like 10, maybe 5, little circle. And we're going to take this circle and do a sweep here with the circle. Again, A wraps around B, and B is the spline mask. So here we have this circle shape. So we have Mickey Mouse here. This is fantastic. Okay, so we have Mickey Mouse in here, and say, for Mickey Mouse, we say, great, this is wrapping around this way. The spline mask has controls for how this moves together. So we turn this off here. The spline mask says, do we want a union? Maybe. Do we want here A subtract B, which would cut out this way, A subtracting B? Do we want B subtracting A, which would cut it this way? Do we want AND, which does only the places where they intersect, or only the places where they don't intersect? Now this looks perfectly fine, but just to show you as an idea, if we did this with, instead of doing a sweep here, let's just get rid of sweep here, we'll do an extrude, just to see the extrude, how the extrude would work. With the extrude here, we could put the spline mask in the extrude. This is the OR. So this is A subtract B, this is B subtract A, this is AND, this is OR, and this is intersection, which includes everything, basically. So this is there. Union basically is the same thing, but you can do these different modes and have these different there. So there will be some differences between how these work and how they connect and etc. and those kind of controls. But if you wanted something, and again, the extrude would have caps. You could put caps in here and put, you know, rounded caps on the ends of these things. Increase the detail of the rounded caps, etc. But if you want to have multiple things together, you could put them together in kind of a spline mask. And so spline masks are great ways to make things that you couldn't make otherwise because you don't have good either Adobe Illustrator skills or because you don't have good ability to draw splines. You know, say for example, I said, hey, let's say I'm going to take a rectangle. We'll take the rectangle, we'll make the rectangle smaller. Maybe like this. Probably like this. We'll take this. I'll take another rectangle. We'll make a rectangle like this. A little bit smaller like this. And we'll make this. We'll move this up on the screen. Over here. Cool. We'll move this to like here. And here. Kind of an inexact science, but we're kind of working here. And I'm going to take this, and I'm going to say inside here, we'll take a circle. We'll move the circle up here like this. We'll make this a little bit smaller. T key, make it a little bit smaller. And put this up here. Maybe like this. And we'll take all three of these, and you're like, what is this? What is this weird shape? What hath he made here, Chad? And you say, cool, let's put this into a spline mask. So we're going to take this, put this into a spline mask. And the spline mask, we're going to say, cool, now we have, oh, did you mean, Chad, that you just took this? And again, we can do this with a spline mask. We can hold in the Alt key, extrude, and we make, oh man, what did you do, Chad? I made a Lego foot. It's a little Lego foot. Again, maybe this rectangle should be a little bit bigger. A little bit wider. There, and I made a little Lego foot. Look at that. A little Lego foot. I don't know, you can draw your Lego foot however you want to, but you've played with Legos before. Little Lego foot. Anyway, things you can make with a spline, or things you make with a spline mask, and do all kinds of cool things with it like so. I want to talk about very lastly, I want to talk about one little detail about how these things work and some issues that you're going to run into, especially when working with these generators as an idea. And we'll work relatively simply. We'll go here to frame default here. Frame default. And inside of here, we're going to look and we're going to say, okay, I'm going to take this circle. And so if I take this circle, I'm going to take the circle and I'm going to make an extrude out of this thing. So I'm going to take the circle and I'm going to put this into extrude. We're going to option click and put this into extrude. Maybe we'll make it a little smaller first, just for example purposes. We're going to go in here and we're going to say option click extrude, and we're going to put this into extrude, and it's going to extrude this. The thing to be careful of is that if I take this circle and I move this circle, now right now the circle is a child of the extrude, which is right there. You'll notice that the coordinates for the circle here are at 0, 0, 0, 0. And so now here, if I take this circle and I move this over here, I'm going to move the whole thing. I'm going to move the whole extrude. Now I've moved this, say, negative 400 off of axis here. The problem is the extrude is still here. The extrude is still here in the center. Now if I go here and I try to rotate the extrude, it's going to rotate this way. It's not going to rotate the circle, because extrude is still facing this way. And here, the extrude is still extruding off the z-axis. So if I go to extrude and go to object controls and do extrude off the z-axis, it's still extruding off the z-axis here like so. If I rotate the circle, I'm going to run into this problem where I'm going to move this and it's going to go flat because it doesn't work. This is the problem with extrude. And this is a problem with the relationship of where the spline is versus where the object is. And so, or where the extrude, where the generator is. And this will run into problems here with all kinds of things of where these things are in relationship to where they are. Because now the axis point is here and this is here, so rotating this will rotate like there. And sometimes that's cool. Sometimes you can use it. I've used that before to hold down command and make like multiples around a circle. You know, if I have some kind of radial that I'm making, I can make multiples that way. That's kind of cool to have something that's like an offset anchor point, but it's not always a good thing to work with, and it's not always a good thing to use. It's a problem. So what's the answer? Well, the immediate answer is don't do this. Don't do this. Don't decide to move the circle over after you've already put it in the extrude, because then you're kind of messing things up. Again, if I take the circle and I start rotating it, I'm going to make some weird action with the circle there. It's not going to do what I want it to do. It's not going to be my friend. I want to be able to move the extrude. So if I'm moving the extrude, yeah, move the whole extrude. That way the extrude stays with where the circle is, etc., like so. That's a better way to go. The other option here is to, if I do this, and sometimes this happens, sometimes you're building something and you're like, oh man, this circle's over here, and again, the extrude is here, the circle is here, the extrude is here, the circle is here. And you're going to run into this not just with extrude, you'll run into this with lathe, you run into this with loft, you run into sweep. For example, you could say, okay, let's say we go into here and we say, I'm going to make a circle. We'll make this here, T key, we'll make this a little bit smaller, we'll put this on the XZ axis here. And I go in here and I say duplicate this, and I say command, and then I say make this a little bit bigger. We're just going to do something silly. And I go E key, command, and we drag this up here and drag this like there. T key, make this smaller, and then E key, command drag, and then T key, make this bigger. So we made this weird shape. And we're going to put this all into the loft. And so here, the loft is here. And so it's going to loft out this way. Now, if I start moving the circles here, the circles, I can E key and move the circles. It's going to loft. Hey, look, it lofted perfectly fine. It's doing its job. We'll add some more segments here just so it looks prettier. Cool. And so I have this weird kind of vase, I guess, something. Turn the start cap off, and we have this weird kind of vase here that exists like there. It looks like that. Cool, and that's perfectly fine. Except now the circles are over here somewhere, and the loft is over here. Which means, again, if I try to rotate the loft, It's going to rotate around there. I can't just rotate these things. And I don't want to rotate these because God knows it's going to cause a big problem if I try to just rotate those. It causes some problems. So the solution would be, again, build it first and then move the loft. But sometimes that doesn't always work. Sometimes you can't always do that. So we're going to look at a couple ideas here. We're going to take the loft as the parent. And so the loft is the parent up here. And so you have the loft and you have the children. And so we're going to look at a control here, just a shortcut, just a little effort here to move this axis point over to here. Now, there's a couple ways we can do this. One of which is we could take the loft. We could hit this button up here, the L key, and we could say E, move this point, and this is the L key. The L key is to move the axis point, to enable axis control. Sometimes you hit the L by accident, especially if you're used to video editing. I hit L all the time. And you can move the axis and move the axis over to here. And that would move the axis. And then you turn the L off and you say, okay, now my axis is now in the same place as this. Now when I rotate this, I'm going to rotate this like there. And you can kind of line up the axis to wherever you want it to be, etc., etc. I'm going to undo really quick, and the axis is there. So that's the L key. That is this little symbol there, enable axis control, which will allow me to move the axis to wherever I want it to be in this object to have this defined of where I want the axis to be for this object. That's a thing I can do. I can move the axis, and I can adjust the axis there to whatever shape I want to. Maybe turn L off, and now I have the control to rotate this so the axis is right there on that object. Maybe that's what I want to do. The other option, which I kind of like better a lot of times, is in here, in the tools, under tools, there is under axis. There's a control here called axis center, but there is the option for center parent to. What this says is if I have circle number 3 here, so this up top here is circle number 3, it's right here. Or I can even choose circle number 1 here. Circle number 1, just as a reminder, is this first circle in the center. So this circle is right here in the center. We're going to say this has this as a parent. So this is here, the parent is over here. What we want to do is we want to center the parent to this point right here. So we're going to here, tools, axis, center parent to, boom, and that will put the loft's center point here in the same place. That updated the center point, and now the center point is here. So you can do this in all kinds of equations to center the axis point to be the center of this circle here and put this right there. If you encounter yourself having problems, can you do it naturally? Yeah, you can move your axis point to wherever you want to just by dragging and moving it. But if you move it someplace, yeah, you can move it all the way over here and have the axis point there of the loft. But if we want it to be here, we can go click on this one, and as long as this is the parent, tools, axis, center parent to, not center to parent, that'd be wrong, center parent to, it's going to put the axis for the parent right there. Now if we wanted the axis to be on the top, we could click on the top one and go tools, axis, center parent to, and it'll put the axis for the loft up here. So now the loft is rotating from here. Whoops, I still have the L on. And now we're rotating this way. So again, you have some controls to adjust the axis there, but argumentatively, if you want to make your life easier, honestly, I would build at 0. The trick is to build at 0. Build everything at 0 and then move the parent. Don't try to move in all the parts, that make up whatever this is, whether it's a sweep, whether it's a loft, whether it's a lathe, whether it's extrude, all those kind of controls. As we go further, we'll talk about other things like connect and symmetry and instance and array and atom array, which is crazy, and polygon reduction. We can talk about a whole bunch of ideas. But for now, these are the basic ones, the basic generators that will get you through and give you some ideas to really make some cool things inside of Cinema 4D. All right, I think that's going to be all for today. Thank you very much, and have some fun making some cool stuff.